Thanks for joining us. I am Dakbo Adegboye. Our coverage tonight begins in West Africa, where Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday arrived at Owo, Ondo State, on a condolence visit to the family of the late former governor of the state, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu. The president was received at the Akure Airport by Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa. President Tinubu later arrived at Owo town on board a chopper accompanied by Aiyedatiwa and was received by the state deputy governor, Olayide Adelami, amongst other top politicians. The president also paid a condolence visit to the traditional ruler of the town, Olowo of Owo, Oba Ajibade Gbadegesin Ogunoye, that's the third, and also Akeredolu, 67, who died on December 26th, that's 2023, in Germany, after a protracted illness, and was buried on February 23rd in Owo.
We lost an illustrious sons. Yes, say a man passed. I'm running out of time, but I said I must be here. I must see you. I feel the life of my friend, my partner, my political associate. Thank you for giving him a befitting burial. Thank you very much.
Let's also tell you that the burial rites for Herbert Wigwe, his wife, and his son have been announced by the family. A funeral ceremony has been scheduled to commence on Monday, March 4th, 2024, at Eco Hotel, Victoria Island, Lagos State, and will end with an outing service on Sunday, that's March 10th, 2024, at the RCCG, Lion of Judah Parish, Isokbo, that's a River State. The Wigways died in an helicopter accident in the United States a few weeks ago. The former chairman of the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC was also aboard the aircraft and among those killed in the incident. Nigeria's Senate has approved the sack of the executive vice chairman of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, Babatunde Irukera. The president of the Nigerian Senate says the Senate acted in line with the provisions of the nation's constitution and believes approving the request of the president will help him reposition his government for greater efficiency.
He who hires can fire, and it's difficult to force a servant on an unwilling master as far as the law is concerned. But here, the provision is very clear. If the Senate's job is to approve the request of the president, not to investigate the request of the president, and luckily the section of the law is very clear that the person could and can be removed from his inefficiency to perform his duties. So I'll put the question. Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate approve the request of Mr. President for the removal of Mr. Babatunde Irukera as the Chief Executive to Vice Chairman of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission? Those in favor of the removal say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The Nigerian Senate has rejected a move to include Anambra State in the membership of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. The move and rejection led to bickering between Senators Tony Moye and Jubrin Issa. Now, Senator Moye had in his lead debate on the bill seeking to the amendment of the NDDC Act for inclusion of Anambra State, being an oil-producing state, argued that Anambra deserved membership of the NDDC since it had been collecting 13% derivation since 2021 on account of appreciation volume of oil production on yearly basis.
But that is not what we are saying now.
If Anambra State is part of Niger Delta, it's not for us as a Senate to go into geography. it will be good for the National Boundary Commission to explain it to us. But because I don't want us to be dragged into an issue that is so simple, if you were not getting your 13% derivation, that would have been a different thing. But since you are getting that, and also, you are also a member of the PIA, that is the host communities, as set up by the Act of Parliament today, and therefore you are also gaining. Those communities are also gaining from the host communities funds. I don't think we should be in a hurry to redefine Niger Delta to include Anambra, Gombe, and all that, but be that as it may, let us put the question. Distinguished colleagues, those who are in support of the argument that this bill be now read a second time, to go for second reading, say aye. Those against say nay. The next have it.
Away from that, we understand that the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, has eased fear of job losses after the implementation of the Oronsoye report. Idris disclosed this in a statement signed by his media aide, Rabiu Ibrahim, on Wednesday. Now, 12 years after it received the Stephen Oronsoye report, the federal government on Monday approved the implementation of some of its recommendations to reduce the cost of governance. Consequently, 29 government agencies will be merged, even as 8 parastatals will be subsumed into 8 other agencies. Also, 4 agencies have been relocated to 4 various ministries, while 1 is earmarked for scrapping. Earlier, a public affairs analyst, that's Jide Ojo, spoke to us on this development. Of course, we apologize for that. Once we get it, we'll, of course, let you see it. But let's now tell you that the Nigerian's organized labor has described efforts aimed at resolving the issues with government through dialogue as a waste of time, owing to its insincere approach to addressing demands by the union. The president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, while speaking to newsmen in the country's capital, Abuja, says that despite calling off its 2-day nationwide protest, government has repeatedly failed to convince the union of its commitment to addressing the economic crisis in the country, which is taking its toll on Nigerian workers. News Central's Marvelous Obomanu tells us more.
The press conference took place at the Labour House at the instance of the leadership of Nigeria's organized labor. The union also took time to appraise its recent nationwide protest, which saw its affiliate unions comply with its call, saying despite calling off the protest, its 2-week timeline for government to implement promises made still stands.
If the government fails to comply within the specified time frame, the NEC will convene again, decide on further lines of action.
Whenever the Nigerian Labour Congress calls any action, we have no choice but to support the Nigerian Labour Congress, because supporting the Nigerian Labour Congress merely means supporting the interests of ordinary people.
The union described government's resolve to address demands it has raised as insincere, saying its engagement with government during the eve of its national protest has once again proven to be a waste of time.
The NLC will no longer be comfortable attending meetings at the eve of any action. Never again. Because it's a waste of time, waste of energy, and nothing comes from such meetings.
This government, in my own opinion, is the worst government in the entire history of the Nigerian people. When we consider all indices of living standards, is it flotation of the currency? Is it the price of goods? Is it inflation? Is it employment or unemployment?
While the federal government is still insisting that it has implemented up to 80% the agreement it reached with organized labor unions in Nigeria, the NLC is stating it emphatically that the government is lying to citizens that it has not implemented any of the agreement it reached with the organized labor union. The NLC is also going ahead to say they will not meet with government at the eve of any of their action. Interesting days lies ahead. The big question now is, who will bail the cat? In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obonman.
Of course, to security matters now, where Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff has called for the adoption of non-kinetic approach to tackling insecurity in the country. This was during a training seminar organized by the defense correspondents in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where non-military means of tackling insecurity was also discussed. Of course, News Central's Amadine Uyi tells us more.
Available estimates say an estimated 50,000 people have been killed in Nigeria by the Boko Haram terrorist group since 2002, with another 2.5 million people displaced. Experts say Nigeria stands at a precipice as it now suffers from insecurity along many fronts.
Nigeria, as a diverse and complex nation, faces a myriad of security threats that demand our unwavering attention and concerted efforts to address. From separatism, insurgencies and terrorism to intercommunal conflicts, transnational organized crimes, and the myriad of other security challenges.
As defense correspondents in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, including editors and public relations professionals, engaged with the military leadership on alternate ways to tackle insecurity, Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff says that there is a need to adopt non-kinetic methods because of its proven success rate.
The armed forces of Nigeria, being the key driver in countering the myriad of security threats nationwide, has sustained non-military and soft strategies as a means to an end of these multifaceted threats.
Look at the insurgency, when it is on 100%, the kinetic aspect is barely 30%. So I think that's certain aspect that we need to consider.
Experts present also urge citizens to be patriotic and put the nation first as Nigeria tackles its insecurity challenges.
There must be a nation before you can even discuss it. And that is very critical. Sometimes I find it very hard to understand when I hear Nigerians speaking evil about their country. And we all know as Africans that there's a power of the word. What you say means a lot. We must learn how to be positive about our country. That's the only way we can produce.
Please continue to be on the side of the truth. Continue, even though objectivity now is subjective, but please maintain the tenets of professionalism and ethics of your profession.
It's very rare. Open CNN today, go to BBC today, you will hardly see any report against what is happening in Ukraine. That is detrimental to the national interest and national security of the West.
In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Discipline has been described as the bedrock of the military profession, without which justice will be difficult to achieve. This was made known during the formal inauguration of the General Court Martial and Parade 1 officer and 16 personnel of the Nigerian Army on their 3rd Division accused of various forms of misconduct in the line of duty. Now, News Central's Chizoba Anyonwe attended the inauguration of the Court Martial and now reports.
This exercise is one of the major calls from civilians to the military in the discharge of their duties, as well as in the face of series of alleged complicity in various violent attacks in some parts of Plateau State. This is one of the latest allegations where the Army and other security agencies, those who have the responsibility of protecting lives, were accused of aiding killers and destroyers. They are believed to be sacred cows who are never held responsible for betraying the power they hold in trust. Addressing the trust deficit is what this court-martial is expected to handle. This compelling order of the 3-Division General Court-Martial was signed on February 6, 2024 by the General Officer Commanding 3 Division, Major General Abdulsalam Abubakar. It is an internal mechanism for trying and punishing security personnel who violate the code of conduct of the agency. After the last exercise by the division in 2019, this is the most recent. Under oath now, the president of the court will strive to ensure justice is served.
It is therefore pertinent to stress that the principle of natural justice, equity, and fairness will be the watchword of the court.
And if the saying, justice delayed is justice denied, is anything to go by, then it is time for this court to prove her mettle.
All prosecution and the accused persons or their counsel should be mindful of these facts and strive to shun all forms of acts such as requests for frivolous adjournment.
In all of these, the essence of this exercise cannot be overemphasized.
The essence is to make sure that the military always uphold the tenets of due process, compliance with the law, and ensuring that personnel always operates within the confines of rules of engagement.
The 3 Division General Court Martial has been adjourned till March 6, 2024 for arraignment of the accused persons. In Jos for News Central, I am Chizoba Anyui.
Of course, let's take you back to one of our stories where we told you that Nigeria's organized labor has described efforts aimed at resolving the issues with the government through dialogue as a waste of time, owing to its insincere approach to addressing demands by the union. Well, at this time, to discuss this, we are joined by Femi Aborishade. He is a labor rights activist. Thank you for your time, Femi.
Thanks very much for having me.
All right. Now, let's talk about your specific grievances and demands that led to the nationwide strike organized by the Nigerian Labour Congress. What exactly are those factors that contributed to the decision in the first place, and why the strike itself was suspended?
Well, let me make certain clarification. 2 main clarifications. One, the protests that were called because of the hunger in the land. It was called in solidarity with the Nigerian poor people. The main cause of the protest, which were to last for 27 and 28 of this month, were not as such labor-oriented. They are labor-oriented to the extent that workers are also hungry. But the protests were called to identify with the ordinary Nigerian people who are hungry as a result of the greed of the ruling class. Secondly, it was not supposed to be a strike as such. No strike action was actually declared. Protests were called. People were asked to join protests in the streets. So there was no authority from organized labor that workers should down tools. And that was why perhaps though it was successful, but it was limited because workers were not asked to down tools. So there was no strike action called, but protests were called. Nigerians were called to demonstrate their revulsion, their objection to the ruinous policies of the federal government, particularly as far as the removal of fuel subsidy is concerned.
All right. I mean, in the press briefing, which we actually did play back, in the course of the bulletin, you said that this administration is the worst in Nigeria's history. I mean, would you also say that this strike action that, was suspended is actually, in line, given the fact that the current administration is also putting in, some sort of effort, a palliative effort, both in policy and commodity, to address the situation? Also with the fact that there's also a court injunction that even prevented, the protest in the first place?
Well, on the court injunction, there was no court injunction as far as the present issues of fuel subsidy removal is concerned. The court injunctions related to labor employment issues that were taken to court. The question of removal of fuel subsidy is not it is not an issue in contention in any court. And Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, has adequately replied the Attorney General of the Federation in exchange of correspondences. So there is no court injunction binding on Nigerians from protesting against hunger in the land as a result of fuel subsidy removal and naira flotation. Not at all.
I mean, do you still...
The other part of the question that I didn't quite get you clearly.
Okay, I said during the press briefing that you held, that of course, the association held earlier today, you said that the current administration is the worst in the history of Nigeria. Do you still maintain that in spite of the efforts it's making to rejig the economy, both in policy, palliatives, and also commodity? And also given the reason, for the removal of the fuel subsidy, the administration, at its inception said fuel subsidy was a hotbed of corruption. Do you still maintain that this government is still the worst in spite of its efforts?
Yes, I still maintain that because under the Jonathan administration, President Bola Tinubu, in opposition then, described the removal of fuel subsidy as Jonathan's tax, and that President Jonathan then had broken a contract, a social contract with the people, and that he should expect massive policy. Now he is in power. He has adopted the same policy which he agitated against, over which he sponsored rallies, supported rallies all over Nigeria. What the president ought to do is to implement one of the agreements they had with organized labor to make the refineries work. They are not making the refineries work. Rather, they are increasing the tax, as he rightly put it, under President Jonathan. They are increasing the tax on the Nigerian people. It's an indirect attack on the living standards of Nigerian people. The palliatives can be said to be fraudulent. Fraudulent in the sense that the root cause of the pains and agony in the land is the removal of fuel subsidy. Palliative is a temporary measure. No palliative removes the root cause of the problem. Therefore, let him review his policy. President Bola Tinubu should review his policy and ensure that the Nigerian people are able to buy fuel at an affordable rate.
All right, Femi Aborishade.
In that context, all the efforts about palliatives will no longer be necessary. They are diversionary. They never address the root of the problem.
All right, Femi Aborishade, I'm sorry we are pressed for time. We would have, of course, loved to continue the conversation, but thank you so much for joining us on the news at this time. Of course, a labor rights activist, Femi Aborishade, once again, thank you so much.
Thanks very much for having me.
All right. The Nigerian Senate has summoned the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, that's Nyesom Wike, and the Commissioner of Police in charge of the territory, Benneth Igwe, over insecurity. The Senate said the invitation had become necessary to enable both Wike and the police boss to brief it on measures being taken to address the menace.
Available for
The Nigerian Communications Commission has reiterated its directive to telecom operators to bar telephone subscribers not linked to their national identification numbers on or before February 28, 2024. Now, the Executive Vice Chairman of the National Communications Commission, Dr. Aminu Maida, spoke at the NCC Special Day during the ongoing 45th Kaduna International Trade Fair on Wednesday. He, represented by Mr. Ruben Moka, that's the NCC's Director of Public Affairs, insisted that the telecom consumers must link their NIN to their SIM as a matter of critical national security. He reaffirmed that the February 28th deadline given to telecom operators to bar subscribers who fail to link their NIN to SIM stands. To this end, the National Communications Commission has directed all telecommunications operators to bar phone lines of subscribers whose lines are not linked to their NINs on or before February 28, 2024. Now to business-related stories, let's tell you that in a drastic attempt to stabilize the struggling Naira, the Nigerian government is reportedly considering blocking access to online platforms such as Binance and other cryptocurrency firms. Officials believe it leads to manipulation of the foreign exchange market and illegal movement of funds through these platforms. And it has been confirmed by the CBN Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu mentioned that Binance and other digital exchanges have become conduits for moving money illegally. Now, News Central's Lekon Onobanjo has more to say in this report.
The Naira has been on a free fall in recent months, reaching record lows against major currencies like the US dollar. This depreciation has put immense pressure on the Nigerian economy, contributing to inflation and hindering imports.
We've seen a lot of volatility in the FX market in Nigeria. We've also seen a very rapid depreciation of our Naira. What we all want is a stable currency.
The government argues that crypto platforms, particularly Binance, with their peer-to-peer functionalities, are being used to exploit weaknesses in the official foreign exchange market and facilitates the illegal transfer of funds. And CBN Governor Olayide Akeredolu mentioned that Binance in Nigeria had been used to move at least $26 billion, further giving more credence to the need to curb the activities of digital exchanges in Nigeria.
Whether we call them speculators or they are money launderers or any other criminal groups will distort the market. We all know that this alternative money, as you may call it, has allowed a lot of things to take place in the dark web and similar places. So yes, it is fair to say that some of the operators may not be people with good intentions.
The proposal has raised concerns about the predisposition and usability of technology for financial activities, with some supporting government's position.
Criminals are criminals, and they should be prosecuted or chased by the law. But technology of blockchain, there's nothing wrong with it, and there's nothing wrong with cryptocurrency. These are technologies that are being used for good.
I would always, on any day, take stability ahead of any other factor, because I think that that's what's most critical. The reality is that lack of stability impairs planning or proper planning. And everyone who says that they support free market is that we should have legitimate demand and legitimate supply. And we want those two things to be the primary driver of our currency's price.
The Nigerian government is yet to make a final decision on the proposed ban, but what is paramount at this time is exerting all measures that can help improve the value of the Naira. In Lagos for News Central, Lekon Onobanjo.
To discuss this, we are joined by Dr. Iwa Salami, Associate Professor in Financial Law and Regulation, University of East London. Thank you for your time. Now, why is the Central Bank of Nigeria keeping track of the activities of firms like Binance? And is that not the work of the Securities and Exchange Commission?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here. So the Central Bank, of course, believes that this platform, this Binance platform, is a major tool for speculating against the naira, of course, whose value, as your correspondent there was saying, has significantly depreciated over the past few months, obviously plunging the country into a foreign exchange crisis. And of course, we know that central banks have as one of their key functions the management of the foreign reserve of their countries. And therefore, of course, the Central Bank of Nigeria in this case is keen to restrict capital outflows and would, has basically looked at crypto assets or cryptocurrency exchanges who, if you like, conduits for which outflows could actually happen. And so that's why the central bank has paid particular attention here as opposed to the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Now, of course, the Security and Exchange Commission had admitted that Binance is not registered to operate in Nigeria. Now, is this not grounds to sue the firm, for illegal activity and make such, known to Nigerians?
So, if obviously, if a firm, a crypto asset firm or whatever type of business is operating illegally in a country, then of course, what about transactions or activities that go on there, would be deemed as illegal, and therefore that's the reason why, in this instance, if the firm hasn't been registered, then of course it would be deemed, its activities would be deemed as illegal, and therefore it could be liable, and the people that actually run it could be held liable for illegal activities. And I think the Securities and Exchange Commission has actually done this. I think the Securities and Exchange Commission actually announced, I think it may have been sometime last year, that Binance Nigeria, that I think claims to want to be a subsidiary to the, the global cryptocurrency firm Binance. I think the Securities and Exchange Commission sometime last year actually said that actually they're not linked. And I think Binance in itself, that's but the Binance, the global crypto asset firm that we know of, also dissociated links with this operation in Nigeria. And I think it needs to be clarified what has happened over the past day or two, which is that it's basically what you have is a situation where the telecoms regulator actually ordered telecoms companies to block access to some crypto, to the largest cryptocurrency exchanges, including the global Binance crypto asset firm that we know of. Totally different from the transaction happening by this entity, if you like, calling itself Binance Nigeria. So I just thought to clarify that.
Now, I mean, considering the fact that Nigeria is actually driving towards attracting more, investment from, across the world, what would you recommend the CBN and also the Security and Exchange Commission do moving forward? Also, given the fact that, cryptocurrency is a big deal globally, and quite a, a number of, not just individuals this time, even corporations transact using those platforms.
So really, to be honest, globally, there's been a drive to regulate crypto assets, firms, cryptocurrency exchanges. We now have guidance from international financial standard setters, such as IOSCO, such as even the Basel Committee, such as through the Financial Stability Board, the Financial Action Task Force. So we really do have guidance, and a lot of countries are now putting regulation in place to regulate cryptocurrency exchanges and crypto asset firms or virtual asset service providers, however we choose to call them. So really, I think that's the way of direction. And, sort of banning the operation of cryptocurrency firms isn't really the way ahead. It's to ensure that we have adequate regulation in place and regulation, taking guidance even from international standard setters. I think what Nigeria actually should be doing, really, is really working on building the economy. Just working on strengthening, of course, the economy by investing in industries, promoting local production. The rhetoric that we know, the sorts of things we need to do in order to actually grow the economy. And I think those are things that can help, boost, if you like, or reboost the value of the naira, which I think, is the main reason why these actions have actually been taken against sort of blocking access to global crypto assets firms. And we can try from now till eternity to do that. Is not these transactions will continue to happen, unfortunately. So focus on regulation, I think, is key. And of course, building the economy to boost the value of the currency.
All right, Dr. Salami, Associate Professor in Financial Law and Regulation, University of East London. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, Mali's foreign minister says his country had made considerable progress securing the African country thanks to Russian assistance. At a Moscow meeting with Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov, Abdoulaye Diop said the government wanted to strengthen bilateral strategic relations between Russia and Mali. Lavrov said military cooperation between the two countries was developing in an active way, as Mali's military junta pushed out a French anti-jihadist force in 2022 amidst deteriorating relations between Bamako and Paris following military coups in 2020 and 2021.
Nous voudrions d'emblée exprimer en tout cas notre appréciation positive par rapport à l'excellence des relations entre la Russie et notre pays, notamment au plan sécuritaire, qui a enregistré des progrès notables.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's tell you what's trending. In light of the Central Bank of Nigeria's decision to resume formal dollar sales to BDC operators, it seems there's some progress as the naira embarked on a path toward appreciation. Today, numerous Nigerians celebrated the significant rebound of the naira in the exchange markets, where we saw appreciation from 1,900 to 1,400 naira per dollar. While this development is welcomed by many, there are different opinions regarding its sustainability. Let us hear from Nigerian ex-users on what they had to say about this. Wasiu Ali is saying floating the naira, one of the policies by the FG, is good, but is it sufficient enough to drive cash inflows and boost liquidity? Another tweet is saying, where are the pessimists and unpatriotic elements regularly posting the decline of the naira? How markets? Prince is saying, remember what happened a few months ago? It fell and later went up to almost 1,900 naira. If you do the right thing, I will applaud you. This is putting the cart before the horse. That's all tonight on What's Trending. Thank you for staying with us.
In interesting times, you would say, across the world. And of course, Udoka, interesting times also in the world of sports, and Jadel in entertainment. But I'd like to stay with you, Jadel, briefly. I mean, what do you make of the Mohbad case? I mean, it's been dragging for so long.
Honestly, just like I was discussing with my colleague earlier, I would say that every up-and-coming artist trying to come into the entertainment industry should ensure that they have, an entertainment lawyer who helps them walk through the music industry and the things that comes behind, the scene.
All right. I mean, interesting times, you would say, in Nigeria. But thank you so much for your, of course, contribution on the news. And that's a wrap on tonight's bulletin. But just to let you know that you can watch News Central live on these platforms, DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching.